Dear Greg, I got up early this morning and cleaned up the kitchen before I went to work. I thought my wife would like that. Well, and then I ironed a shirt for work, but by that time it was getting late, so I left the ironing board in the kitchen. When I got home, did she say a word about my cleaning the kitchen? Oh no, she stood there and pointed at the ironing board in the kitchen and asked me why I'd left it there. Unbelievable. She could have just put it away in less than a minute, but instead she left it in the middle of the kitchen all day just so she could tell me to put it away. She does this all the time. She doesn't appreciate anything I do, but she whines about every mistake I make. I told her she was ungrateful and demanding, and we argued for quite a while. I hate these arguments, but we keep having them. How can I get her to stop nagging me and be more appreciative?
When we don't have enough real love in our lives, we do whatever it takes to get the imitation love that will make us feel better temporarily. Your wife, for example, gets angry at you and tries to control your behavior because it gives her a sensation of power. And you do things for her to earn her approval and gratitude. Now, you might object that you cleaned the kitchen, for example, just to be nice to her. And that might have been part of the reason. But you also expected recognition and gratitude because when you didn't get it, you were disappointed and irritated. Your supposed gift to her was not given unconditionally. So the two of you are trading imitation love with one another. And that never leads to the kind of happiness you really want. So what can you do about it? When in doubt, always tell the truth about yourself. Sure, it's tempting to point out that your wife was ungrateful and demanding, and you're right, she was. But what happens if you do that? Can you think of a single time that you've pointed out her faults and she was grateful to you for doing it? There's just no yield in telling her how she's wrong. Stick with your mistakes. Were you irresponsible in leaving the ironing board in the middle of the kitchen? Yes. Sure, you also cleaned up the kitchen, which was nice, but that doesn't change the mistake you made. If your wife had sufficient real love in her life, she would have been grateful for your cleaning the kitchen, and she would have completely ignored your mistake. But it's obvious that she wasn't sufficiently loving, and you need to learn to respond to her as she is, not as you wish she were. It will be easier for you to react to her more productively if you remember the first and second rules of seeing, as taught in the book Real Love. They state that in any conversation, there can be only one speaker, and that whoever speaks first is the speaker. When you got home, she spoke to you about the ironing board. That made her the speaker. And the only productive thing you could have done was to genuinely listen to her. On the whole, we don't listen very well. When you truly listen to your wife, you recognize what she's really saying. She wasn't just talking about an ironing board. Like you said, it would have taken her only a minute to put it away. Remember that anger is always a response to emptiness and fear. And those two conditions are always related to real love. She was really telling you she didn't feel loved. And the ironing board in the middle of the kitchen was just another piece of evidence, probably one of hundreds, that you don't care about her. Then, when you responded to her attack by defending yourself and attacking her in return, you confirmed her belief that you didn't primarily care about her. So then she responded with even more anger to protect herself. When we're empty and afraid ourselves, we tend to respond to people in ways that are guaranteed to make them more empty and afraid too. Of course, then they respond to us in ways that make our emptiness and fear worse. The cycle is horribly destructive. And until someone sees what's happening and can take a different course of action, the destruction and unhappiness will continue indefinitely. So what can you do differently? We'll talk about that in the next session. In the meantime, remember that it's always about real love.